What is domestic violence? How does it start? Why does it happen?
Domestic violence is a pattern of behavior, abusive behavior. It could be physical, it could be mental. There's actually something called a power and control wheel, and it has all the different types of abuse that could occur. So it could be, like I said, physical, it could be emotional, it could be spiritual, it could be financial. There's all of these control issues that are involved. So it's a pattern of abusive behavior, and it could be any host of those items.
Many people believe domestic violence is a women's issue, but is it really?
I believe that it's an everybody issue, that men should be more involved in making domestic violence, having domestic violence awareness, because by having men involved, that will then begin we will then see a decrease, I believe, in the behavior. So I believe it's an everybody issue.
One way to teach about domestic violence is to tell stories. Detective Deirdre Fishel of the Center County Police Department created a film called Telling Amy's Story, which chronicled a domestic violence-related homicide in 2001. The film was so well received, and as a result, it boosted law enforcement efforts pertaining to domestic violence cases across Pennsylvania.
We wanted officers to stop looking at domestic violence like a snapshot of just this incident and what's going on tonight, and start looking at it more of an ongoing process that they are being injected to in the middle of, and not just at that moment. And so we developed this training curriculum for law enforcement, and it was literally just me going into law enforcement trainings and telling cops, this is what happened in Amy's life. But when we did that, the officers received it so well, and they liked the training so much, that they asked for it to be expanded farther out into the community. So then we started training judges and advocates and the medical community, and the requests for the training were coming in so frequently that I couldn't do my job. I mean, I'm a full-time police detective, and if I'm training, twice a day, 5 days a week, I'm certainly not getting my job done. And so that's when we partnered, the Center County Women's Resource Center partnered with Penn State Public Broadcasting, and they applied for a grant to the Verizon Foundation. And the Verizon Foundation developed a curriculum that married the facts of Amy's case with some advocacy and tips for how to respond, and that curriculum was shared at all of the Penn State branch campuses across the Commonwealth. Once that happened, it was so well received that the Penn State Public Broadcasting went back to Verizon and asked for additional funding in order to develop this film that could be aired nationally.
In Pennsylvania, laws are in place to combat domestic violence.
The sort of umbrella law that covers domestic violence in the criminal code is 2711. And Section 2711 gives a police officer the same right to arrest somebody without a warrant for a misdemeanor that happened outside of their presence as if a felony had happened. And so that gives law enforcement the discretion to remove somebody from their home at the time of that misdemeanor violence to take action. And so that's, I think, one of the strongest laws that we have in Pennsylvania in regards to effectively responding to domestic violence.
There are support agencies for domestic violence across the nation. One of them, in Pennsylvania, is called the Laurel House.
Laurel House is a comprehensive domestic violence agency. We serve all of Montgomery County. We started about 33 years ago as a shelter for women and children who are endangered at home because of domestic abuse. And over the years, we've expanded into a multi-purpose agency. So people who maybe don't need shelter, but they need other kinds of supportive services related to domestic violence can come to us for that kind of help as well.
Those who experience domestic violence can fit all socioeconomic levels.
Unfortunately, domestic violence cuts across all socioeconomic levels. What happens, though, is that those who don't have the resources to go to when they're fleeing come to our shelter, and that's what people see, because they don't have the resources to go to anywhere else. And so we do see the low, very low, deeply poor people in our shelter, in our transitional housing program, because they haven't got another place to go to, another home, a job to be able to rent another apartment. So we do see the majority of people who come to our shelter are deeply poor, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't exist in other socioeconomic classes.
What kind of education are students at Cabrini College receiving when it comes to domestic violence? And what impact has it had?
At Cabrini, what we have done is we've had, for the past 3 years, we've done domestic violence symposium, or education symposiums. We've had a lot of people who are experts in the field come and talk about domestic violence. We also have an ECG 100, ECG 300 course. We also have a course in the values exploration. So we've had a lot of these courses. We also are educating our teachers within the education department to be more aware of what we can do, what they can do to help children in the classroom who have suffered from domestic violence.